Hey, what's up? Jeff Lerner here, and I want to talk in this video about storytelling. And the reason we're talking about storytelling is because, as they say, facts tell, stories sell. If you want to grow your business, you want to sell more of your product, you want to have more influence in this world, you want to, frankly, have a better life, you've got to learn to be a good storyteller and to tell effective stories to help you achieve strategic goals. So let's talk about the structure of telling a great story. All right, so the reason why I love telling stories is because, frankly, it has changed my life to learn how to do so. 12 years ago, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story here. 12 years ago, I was broke. In fact, I'll use the structure that I'm gonna explain here in a minute. So once upon a time, aka 12 years ago, I was a jazz musician. I was struggling. I was playing gigs. I was teaching lessons. I was not making much money. One day, I decided to start a restaurant as my next thing. I got a bank loan. I spent all my tip jar money, like years and years of savings. And because of that, I lost everything. Because of that, I defaulted on bank loans and leases and ended up almost $500,000 in debt, still as just a working piano player. And because of that, my wife basically left me. She probably would have left me anyways, but it wasn't going that well. But because of that, I ended up with my back against the wall until finally I, in desperation, spent the last of the money that I had left on learning how to market on the internet and start a digital business. And ever since then, I've been able to pay off my debt and live a really great life and start multiple businesses and go on to kind of a happily ever after life. And now I make videos talking about how awesome life is supposed to be and how to acquire the skills to make life awesome. So that's my story. And now what you may or may not know is I just used a structure called the story spine that was created by a guy named Ken Adams, who's a playwright and a teacher. And this story, this story spine, this structure, it's not you don't fall in love with a spine or a skeleton, you fall in love with a whole person, right? Muscle and tissue and skin. And just in that same way, a story isn't just this spine, but frankly, just like a body without a skeleton is not going to be much to look at. A story without this structure isn't going to really function successfully. It needs this spine to hang on. So the story spine itself is basically, once upon a time, blank. I was a jazz musician. One day, blank, I started a restaurant. Because of that, blank, I lost everything. Because of that, I lost multiple because of that. Because of that. Fill in the blanks. I lost everything. I ended up in a bunch of debt. I lost my apartment. My wife was super pissed and decided to leave me, and so on and so on. Until finally, I, in desperation, learned how to do internet marketing, right? So until finally is the thing, because of that, until finally, and ever since then, happily ever after, right? That's my story. That's the spine. The spine is, again, once upon a time, blank. One day, blank. And that's the beginning. The beginning that sets the stage is once upon a time, blank, and one day, blank. One day is the event. The event shifts the story into the middle. Because of that, blank. Because of that, blank. Because of that, blank. Because of that, blank. Until finally, blank. Now we're at the climax. And ever since then, blank. And that's the end of the story. Ugh, this sun is just awful. That's the structure of every good story. You can look at like every Disney movie, really every good movie, every great book. And obviously there's a million twists and turns and nuances and ornamentations that are possible within that framework, but that's the structure of every great story. So whatever business you're in, whatever sale you're trying to close, whatever mission you're trying to pursue, whatever agenda you're trying to promote, you have to figure out what that story is. For my digital agency, for example, when we were, I sold the bulk of it last year. So it's a little different situation now, but we grew that straight for 6 years. Had great run, did over $20 million in sales, multiple times on the Inc. 5000, and always I trained our salespeople to sell with a story. Now there's actually 3 stories. There's 3 versions of that story spine story in every sales opportunity. One is your story as a salesperson, how you've been, or as an owner or whatever, how you've been personally impacted or personally affected by whatever it is that you're doing or selling, right? So there's your story. Secondly, there's the story of any current or past clients, essentially what you would call case studies or testimonials. How have they been affected? Once upon a time, my client X was struggling with their business. One day, they decided they'd had enough. Because of that, they decided to seek help. Because of that, they fired their website guy. Because of that, they had disruptions in sales. Because of that, they had low quality scores in customer service, until finally one day they found my business, awesome marketing. And ever since then, they've been happy with their digital services and happy with their online presence, and their business has been stable and growing, right? Like that was my agency story. It's like, so that's the story of the client, the past or present client. There's your story, there's the past or present client, and then there's the future story, the potential story for the prospect, which is the same story, but in the language of the person who would potentially be your customer, right? And so the ability to sort of navigate between those stories and articulate those stories, that's all it really is. It's not, I'm not saying there's not other nuances to selling and to growing a business, but it's all just story. You want to build a team, want to have loyal employees, enroll them in a story, help them understand what the story of the company is. That's going to be the basic structure of the story, and get them bought into it. Want to sell more product? Craft a tighter story. Want to have a better marriage? Create a story around your coupleship and what it is that you're doing in this role. Once upon a time I was, tell yourself the story. Tell your wife or your husband the story. Once upon a time I was unhappy. One day I decided to get serious and, buckle down and only, focus on things that were good for me. Because of that, I broke up with my old girlfriend. Because of that, I got focused at work. Because of that, I got my priorities straight. Because of that, I found religion, like whatever it is, until one day I met you, babe. I met my wife. And ever since then, my life has been complete, and it's easy to focus on the right things, and we're building a great fairy tale together, right? Like whatever, right? It's always going to fit that format. And if you get really, really nimble at adapting that format into all the different things you're doing in life, it's going to help you be clear about what you're doing. It's going to help you have focus. It's easy to focus on anything when you feel like you're part of a story. And it's easy to enroll people into ideas when they feel like they're part of a story. And this structure is how you craft stories that just sit well with people. And if people can enroll into that story and that arc and see how they fit, see how working with you or partnering with you helps complete that story for them, how it helps, by them working with you, it helps complete that story for you. Everybody feels great about that story. And it's like a decoder ring to having the right conversation and creating the right understanding for people in really just about any scenario. So, that was my best attempt to sort of articulate it and explain it while, driving a car. I really do suggest, Google The Story Spine by Ken Adams and read. There's so many articles and writers talk about this. Playwrights use it. There's improvisers use this to actually create in their improvisations to create believable, investable stories for people spontaneously. In the back of their mind, they might be creating the details improvisationally, but they're sticking to this story spine. How many stories start once upon a time? It's the spine played out again and again and again. So, like I said, Google it. Now that if this is your first video and you're like, who is this Jeff guy? Why is he talking to me about the story spine and how to use it to sell? And listen, here's the deal. Life is meant to be awesome. For most people, creating an awesome life, I talk about the 3 Ps of excellence: physical, personal, and professional. Creating an awesome life is going to involve acquiring more resources, deploying those resources in a way to fuel your life. That means money. That means you need, usually for most people, more income or different sources of income or a different way of procuring income that frees up your time to pursue those forms of excellence and not grind away your life at a job. So I teach entrepreneurship. It's a pretty simple formula: awesome life, make money to fund that awesome life, build a business to make the money to fund that awesome life. learn the skills to be able to build that business in a way that also keeps your time free and doesn't, swallow you up in the world. Life's meant to be awesome, but you got to do the work. If you're into that, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I got lots more to share. Make sure you click the bell so you get notified as new videos get released, and I'll keep the content coming. Thanks for your time. Take care.